I have a very special stream for you. I'm here with Gonzalo Lira. So again, Gonzalo is a Chilean American journalist. He's residing in Kharkiv in Ukraine, and there's a fear that he was disappeared, so to speak. Well, he's here with me. He's here live in the flesh, and thankfully he's okay. Gonzalo, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Richard. Thank you very much for having me on. And hi, chat. How's it going?
I think we've got about 1,000 people watching. So again, guys, please make sure you've hit the like button. It helps with the algorithm. Gonzalo, can I just ask you what the hell happened? Because everybody was worried. You were set to appear on George Galloway's show, and then you didn't show up, and people were saying all sorts of things. You yourself, you said that if we don't hear from you within 12 hours, that you've likely been picked up by the SBU, which are the Ukrainian security services. Is that what happened? Were you picked up by the SBU?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And legally, for the time being, I can't discuss the period from the time I was detained. I was detained on April 15th at around, I do believe around 1:20 p.m., or roughly around that time. And I cannot discuss in any detail whatsoever that period, that lost week, if you will. I can say that they sent 8 guys that were heavily armed.
Oh, really?
That's kind of flattering. Yeah, you know. And me, middle-aged, unarmed, and 8 heavily armed men. Yeah, I felt very flattered. But no, seriously, I can't talk about it. I actually signed a document that I understand that in the law in Ukraine during a period of investigation, you can't discuss anything that has gone on during this period of time. And so I am going to abide by that rule.
So this is like an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, so sort of.
During the time of the investigation until a final sentence is handed down, yeah.
But Gonzalo, I'm confused. I thought Ukraine is a shining liberal democracy. They don't come and arrest journalists. What are you telling us? This is interesting. This is really interesting. You mentioned.
See, it's public knowledge. It's public knowledge that the Zelensky regime has in its power Viktor Medvedchuk, who was the opposition leader. Now, for those viewers who don't understand the significance, it's sort of like if say Boris Johnson had Keir Starmer arrested.
I wish, but
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. But I understand.
You know what I'm saying? Or like, yeah, or if Joe Biden just put I don't know, Trump under house arrest or something like that. I mean, like really outrageous kind of behavior that does not square at all with this picture that Zelensky is this paragon of this paradigm rather of democratic virtue. I mean, the guy, just a few weeks ago, he outlawed every opposition political party. Last year, and the year before, in 2020 and 2021, he shut down all of the opposition news channels.
Right.
And he has, his goons have persecuted opposition journalists, have disappeared them. A problem that is going on right now is that, you see, Ukraine is a country of 45 million people before the conflict. And rough estimates are that roughly a third of that population people have been displaced. Now, some of them have fled the country altogether, and others, a majority, about 2/3 of those people, have moved internally. But the thing is, see, with all of this movement going on, a lot of people have lost track of other people, including a lot of journalists. And a lot of outspoken journalists in Ukraine are kind of like missing, and nobody's really sure if they're missing, or just, they're on the move and nobody can find them. At this time in Ukraine, you are a male between 18 and 60, you can be conscripted and forced to get into the uniform and start fighting. Okay. Now, so obviously, a lot of people have gone underground to avoid this fate. Now, I know for a fact that there are individuals who are floating around looking for such individuals, such men who are of fighting age. The reason I know this is because I was actually approached by one a few weeks ago. I didn't realize it at the time. He seemed sort of suspicious to me. And he came up to me and started talking to me. And I don't speak a word of Russian or Ukrainian. And I mean, da and niet, and that's pretty much it, right? And so this guy started talking to me, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he sort of like, realized I was a foreigner, and a foreigner, of course, is exempt from this rule.
Mm-hmm.
And but the point is that, see, all kinds of repressive measures are being carried out by the Zelensky regime, and you have to understand that Zelensky is an actor. He is a cocaine addicted actor. And I don't care if I'm still in Kharkov and I could get into trouble, but it's the truth. The guy is a cokehead, the cokehead of Kiev. That's who he is. And he is a puppet of Ihor Kolomoisky, who is an oligarch who created him in 2015. Zelensky was a very successful actor in Ukraine, as there are successful actors in every country. Romantic comedies, that kind of thing, everyman roles. And he was hired for the TV show Servant of the People, and which was produced rather by an outfit called 1+1 Media, which was the largest media company in Ukraine, which was owned by Kolomoisky. Now, Zelensky was market tested to play the role of an accidental president, in the show Servant of the People, which was a show that was astroturfed. For those of you who aren't American or don't understand the term, it's when something is made artificially popular by spending a lot of money, a lot of marketing money, to make it appear as if it's, a grassroots, but it's not really grassroots. It's created, manufactured, astroturf. That's where the term comes from. And so he was astroturfed into enormous popularity in 2017 and 18. And in 2018, he all of a sudden ran for president for real. But it was all bankrolled by Kolomoisky. Now, Kolomoisky, Ihor Kolomoisky, look that name up. Don't take my word for it. Ihor Kolomoisky, guess what other company he owns? Burisma Gas. The same Burisma Gas that Hunter Biden was on the board of directors and was getting paid $1 million a year for a no-show job as a member of the board of directors. And Ihor Kolomoisky was the guy who made that happen. And here's another little twist in this bizarre story. Ihor Kolomoisky is good friends with Victoria Nuland. Victoria Nuland is the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, and she is the woman who manufactured the coup d'etat of 2014 in Ukraine. Right. And so you have all this spider web of interconnectedness. And see, when I talk about this stuff, it sounds like I'm high. It sounds like I'm one of these weird conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat brigade kind of guys, right? You can look this up. You don't have to take my word for it. All of this information that I'm saying, it's publicly available, and it's been reported multiple times. None of this is secret. None of this is like some big discovery that I made. Okay, I want to make that clear. Okay, I'm just the moron who's like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. Oh, they're connected. People should know about this. And so I went and told people, and I got into shit out of trouble, man. That's basically what's going on. I mean, I'm not like going out there and digging into files and getting into meeting up with people in shady corners and cafes, very dark, and trench coats and fedoras. No, I'm just a loser with a computer and Google and Wikipedia. Okay, and just you tell this stuff because it's true. It's insane.
I mean, you put it in a very modest way. I'm just putting up on the screen. This is Victoria Nuland, who again is the Undersecretary for Political Affairs. I'm just showing her face on the screen. I'm sure everybody's familiar with her, but nevertheless. And
the wicked witch of Washington. Yeah, she's flying around in her broomstick, going somewhere or other, and she's all kinds of nasty. But look, you got to understand all of these relationships. Oh, and I haven't even started talking about the other stuff. See, Kolomoisky, he is a Ukrainian, Israeli, Cypriot oligarch. He got his money by all kinds of shady ways, including using organized crime and muscle to beat the shit out of anybody who objected to what he was doing. I mean, simple as that, okay? And see, he's the guy, that guy, Ihor Kolomoisky, he's the guy who set up the Azov battalion. Now, these guys, Azov and the other, there are a bunch of different groups, right? But let's just call them Azov to make it short. But there's this S-14, there's Right Sector, and Right Sector is actually kind of important right now because the leader of them is pretty much running the war, all kinds of people. Anyway, the point is that, see, all of these people, they were football hooligans. I'm not kidding. I wish I were. They were football hooligans, right? And some of them from here in Kharkov and the Medalist Club, right? And the Medalist is the local team. And these football hooligans were organized by Kolomoisky or his security people or whomever, and he paid them off and organized them into these neo-Nazi battalions. And of course, if you're thinking, wait, if he's Ukrainian, Israeli, Cypriot, does that mean he's Jewish? And yeah, he is Jewish, and he's the one who set up these neo-Nazi goons. You know?
Right, but they keep telling us there's no Nazis in Ukraine because Zelensky's Jewish, and that's supposed to invalidate the entire claim, apparently.
Look, see, there are a lot of liberals. Now, you have to keep in mind, I am a conservative. I'm a political conservative. I'm a man on the right, okay? But see, there's a difference between like a man on the right and a Nazi. There's a difference between a man on the left and a, crazy Stalinist communist, right? I mean, there are differences. There are nuances. Life is all about nuance, quite frankly. These guys, they are not about nuance, man. They tell you right to your face that they are neo-Nazis. They have tattoos on their shoulder or their chest, and they're happy to show them to you. They're not going to hide them.
Right.
This isn't like some loser from Brooklyn, right? Some little Brooklynite cafe latte sipping loser who says that J.K. Rowling is a Nazi fascist because she's uncomfortable with the whole transgender movement. No. These are actual Nazis, not J.K. Rowling Nazi, okay? Actual, okay? And they're like American History X. They're almost like cartoonish in their exaggerated profile. And they'll go right up to your face and say, yes, we are Nazis, and we think that it's great, and you should be one too, and you should get a big swastika tattoo on your chest just like us, and it'll be great, and we'll go out there and bust skulls and, cause all kinds of mayhem. It's like that. Now, here's a key issue. You got to understand what's going on. See, these guys in 2012, really, they started getting organized in 2013 and 14. They were the muscle in the Maidan revolution, which was not a revolution. It was a coup d'etat. It was a so-called color revolution, which is basically what it is. For those of you who don't know, it is a coup d'etat that masquerades as a popular revolution. What happens is that, see, there. It doesn't matter what, food goes up, the price of gasoline, whatever. Did I freeze up, or am I still going?
You froze up for a second, and I was going to make a joke that the SBU are jamming the stream or something.
No. It's because of the video. The video eats up bandwidth. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that you see I lost my train of thought. Oh, in 2013, the color revolutions, okay, as they are traditionally applied, what happens is that they use an actual event that's going on that causes popular discontent, and they're the steroids of that popular discontent, and they turn up the volume, and they use the popular discontent over this specific issue, which might be perfectly legitimate, by the way, but they amp up the tension and the violence. Yeah. And they use that violence to overthrow the regime that's in power. And so the regime in power doesn't have a chance to deal with the protesters, negotiate things, calm things down, potentially fix the problem that they're having, because these are legitimate problems. And you have to understand, in most leaders, in most countries, they want to solve the problems of the people, if only to make life easier for themselves. Okay, I mean, they're not just let them eat cake. That's a caricature. Most leaders, most people who are in leadership positions are very smart customers, and they understand that if there's popular discontent, the smart thing, if only to make your life easier, is to solve it. And the way you start to solve such a problem, whatsoever that problem may be, is first to talk and negotiate and calm things down. But these color revolutions, that's the antithesis. They want to amp up the violence, amp up the rhetoric, amp up
Yeah.
the hysteria and anger and fury, and get more people and get to a point of explosion, like a nuclear bomb, get it to a fissile moment where the whole thing just goes boom.
Yep.
Right. And so that's what they did in 2014. And the detonants were these neo-Nazi thugs. Now, after the successful coup d'etat, because it was a successful coup d'etat, the government of Ukraine, of Poroshenko, decided, and of course pressured very, very much by these neo-Nazi thugs who were the ones responsible for the coup d'etat. They, on the one hand, created dedicated military battalions that were of these neo-Nazi groups, like the Azov battalion, like the Aidan battalion. That's actually more the size of brigades than battalions. I mean, bigger. They're pretty big. And on the one hand, and on the other hand, what they did was they took a lot of these neo-Nazi thugs and spread them out throughout the security services and the armed forces. And so what's that called? That's called stiffening in military lingo. What it is that, see, suppose you have a division, say, that is not very good. They're not disciplined. The soldiers are lacking in discipline and skills and what have you. Well, then you take a small group of men, like a brigade size or something, and that are very disciplined soldiers, very good soldiers, and you spread them around. And what happens is that these very disciplined soldiers, by example, make the other not so capable soldiers, they sort of like start to rise up. Okay, it's human nature that you want to copy the more dominant behavior. And that, of course, this is a typical military doctrine called stiffening. And this is a lot of the cases, like, for instance, in these wars that the United States got involved in, whereby they would have, quote unquote, advisors. Well, these advisors, their job is not to advise and give PowerPoint presentations, but rather to join the armed force and act as the stiffening agent that would make the soldiers better soldiers, more disciplined, better at their task of soldiering. You see, that's the point of an advisor, a military advisor. Now, ideologically, something very similar happened here, because these soldiers, these agents provocateurs, excuse me, these right-wing, not right-wing, they're fascist nutcases, were spread out throughout the armed forces of Ukraine. There are estimates that they were from 1 in 20 soldiers to 1 in 10. Now, what happened is that they spread their ideology around pretty drastically over the past 8 years. They've been pretty effective because they are ideologically minded. And most people are not ideologically minded. Most people just go with the flow. And so when you have, in a military situation, an armed force, highly ideological individuals who actively spread their ideology among people that they are working with and living with 24/7, because that's how it is in the armed forces, right?
Right.
Well, a lot of those soldiers are going to become ideologically radicalized. Now, on the flip side, what you have is the NATO. Ukraine is not part of NATO, but NATO was training the Ukrainian armed forces ever since 2014. It's 8 years. What happened was that they were training them at the rate of, if memory serves, it was 4 battalions a year. Okay, they pretty much trained the entire Ukrainian armed force. And the NATO training involves the concept of interoperability, because NATO is an alliance of multiple countries, right? And so what you want to have is you want to have, say, a brigade from Italy. You want to be able to just pull it out, move it over, and plug it into a German division, and it works properly. That command and control, weapon systems, communications, all that stuff is all on the same par, like one army, That's called interoperability. And so the Ukrainian soldiers were trained to be essentially NATO soldiers, okay?
Right.
Their heavy tanks and heavy weapons were Soviet era and Ukraine built, sure, but in terms of strategy, in terms of combat tactics, in every sense of the word, they were NATO soldiers.
Yep.
And they were actually better than the best NATO soldiers, including American NATO soldiers, for a very simple reason. The Ukrainians were seeing active and constant combat on the contact line with the Donbass, okay, which is the southeast area, which is the point of contention. You see, the war that started in 2012, 13, it never ended. It's been this slow grind in the Donbass area. That's why 16,000 people have died over the last 8 years, 500 people a year, because, 2,000 people a year. Jesus Christ, my math is going out the window. But, 2,000 people a year in this slow, relentless grind, okay? And so these soldiers that are NATO trained, highly ideological, I mean, neo-Nazi, no question. I mean, again, I have to insist, it sounds insane in this day and age, but this is how it is. NATO trained neo-Nazi ideology and with extensive combat training. Because what happened was that the Ukrainian army was rotating its soldiers through the Donbass area so that
we've lost Gonzalo for a second.
What?
Oh,
I'm sorry?
You're back. We lost you for a second. You froze up.
How much did it? Where did I cut off?
Well, you said that they were rotating them.
Okay, right, they were rotating them at the front line, and so all of the units of the Ukrainian armed force have had combat experience. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Hello? Yeah. And so what happens is, as a practical matter, the Ukrainian units are the best trained NATO units, and they are better trained and have more experience. They are better soldiers than the American soldiers or the British or the French or the German or anybody in NATO. They're the best. They are top line because they have actual combat experience and relentless combat experience. So they know what works. They've learned through bitter experience what combat tactics, everything. They are the best soldiers that NATO's got, and they're losing. And there's no other way to put it, okay? And they're losing pretty badly.
Well, Gonzalo, I want to say a few things over here because
sure, sorry, I've been ranting. Sorry about that.
No. It's very, very good and very informative, and you nailed it, if I may say so, in summarizing each point. The thing with the color revolution, I mean, how you said that they create this atmosphere where everything comes to a climax and it just explodes, and there are legitimate problems. This reminded me of what happened in Syria, right? Because the sort of Arab Spring you saw in Tunisia and Egypt, that was like actual mass mobilization. The thing you saw in Syria and Libya, that was much more orchestrated. And again, there are legitimate problems in the country, but when you have Al Qaeda running around, ISIS running around, and they're using weapons funneled to them by the CIA, that's not a civil war or shall we say a grassroots uprising. So I just wanted to say that there's a parallel there, and of course it's the same actors behind it. And when you just going back to NATO, it's very important that you mention this stuff, because people are under the impression that, well, Ukraine never joined NATO, so this idea that Russia has a security concern is rubbish, and it isn't rubbish, because as you just said, they're not only trained for interoperability, but they're also battle hardened. They have the experience, and now they have all of this weaponry gushing in. Just yesterday morning, Biden approved $800 million. So now Ukraine has received just as much, if not more, weapons than Israel, which is the top cumulative recipient of military aid since World War II from the U.S. So now $3.4 billion from the U.S., 1.5 billion euros from the EU in weaponry. I mean, this idea that they're not part of NATO is frankly ridiculous. And what do you think? Why do you say they're losing, despite the fact that they're so well trained?
Okay. The reason that the Ukrainian, how can I put this? You got to keep in mind something. See, I'm an old fart with a slight pot belly and a double chin, and I'm completely out of shape. Okay. Now, if I get into a boxing ring with Conor McGregor, he's going to beat the shit out of me. Okay. Do I want him to beat the shit out of me? No, I want to win, of course. I mean, like,
Right.
I'm me, and I don't want me to suffer. I want me to win, of course. Okay. But if I'm looking at it realistically, Conor McGregor's going to win, man. Come on, what the hell are you talking about? He's got more experience. He's got more everything going for him, right? I might be taller than him, and I might be heavier than him, but my heaviness is all fat, and my height advantage and reach advantage is going to be nothing compared to the incredible experience that he brings. And so, as a realistic assessment, see. I'm not denigrating myself, and I'm certainly not saying that I'm less of a man than Conor McGregor. He's a human being, as I am, and I think that we're both equal as human beings. But in this particular issue of like the both of us getting into the ring, he's going to win, and that's a realistic assessment from me, his potential opponent. Okay, I'm saying this as a prelude to what I'm saying here is that the Russians have more men. They have much better technology, much more sophisticated technology than the Ukrainians possess. They are also, frankly, they are better led on a military level and certainly on a political level. And so they have a very clear idea what they're doing. They have a very clear of how to do it. They have the men and the equipment to do it. And so it was sort of like inevitable that they were going to win. And the fact is, on the first day, they took out all of the important things. They broke the communication lines of communication between Kiev and all of the outlying units. Military communication has been a patchy thing for the Ukrainians. And a lot of times that's why you see some random stunt like that missile that destroyed essentially the Moskva, and that very daring raid, and I would say heroic raid on the oil tanker on the oil facility in Belgorod by those Ukrainian helicopters. I mean, I've spoken to some helicopter pilots before that incident, of course, and they told me that night flying and low-level night flying is the scariest thing imaginable because you don't see anything until it hits you right in the face. So all kinds of balls it took to do that stuff, right? But those are random, uncoordinated attacks. They're not. There isn't an overall defensive strategy on the part of the Ukrainians, let alone an offensive strategy, because the ability to carry that out, that kind of overarching defense and eventual offense, was destroyed by the Russians on the very first day, along with destroying their navy, which would have been peripheral in this particular fight, but also their air force. The Russians really came in and knocked out the key supports of the Ukrainian armed forces at the very beginning. And at the very beginning, on the day of the invasion, I happened to fly in on the day before, on February 23rd. I still have I just discovered earlier today the ticket stub, my flight ticket stub from the flight. I arrived on February 23rd, and on February 24th, I was walking around the center of Kiev in Krashatik Avenue, which is like the big, central avenue there. And, no Russians. And they were saying that, like 30,000 Russians had come in. I was thinking, and I don't have any military experience. I've never been in the army or anything. I was thinking 30,000 soldiers for a city this size, because Kiev is huge. It's, like Boston or something. It's one of these big spread out cities, okay? And since land is cheap, there aren't that many towers. It's spread out, right? And so, I was thinking that's way too few men to capture a city and let alone control it. And so it was pretty obvious, I mean, to me at least, and I didn't have any experience, that they had no intention of capturing Kiev.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, talking to people who are very knowledgeable about the military, who served themselves, they said, look, no, it's a very standard battlefield tactic of pinning down enemy armed forces. You attack with a relatively small force of, like, say, 20,000, 30,000, and you pin down a force multiple sizes of that, 2, 3, 4 times as big, because they're there, they see you coming, and so they're scared, or not scared, but they assume a defensive position, and so they don't move.
Right.
And so that's what the Russians did in Kiev. There was no battle for Kiev because Kiev was never in play. The whole point of it was a feint to pin down a large piece of the Ukrainian armed force, while the southern front was another approach. And you have to think of it in a flexible way, because what was going on, there was multiple lines of attack, going into Kiev, going out of Crimea into Mariupol, going out of Kiev into Kherson, another line, of the Donetsk People's Republic and the Lugansk People's Republic Army, attacking forward and sort of like holding on to the Ukrainian armed forces in the east, and that proved to be very important, because that was the main battle group on the east of the country. Well, on your hand, it would be like, I guess, over here, yeah. But anyway, you get my point. The point is that, the Russians attacked from multiple axes, actually 6 axes, and they kept them all open, sort of like figuring out, well, which would be the best approach. And, they adapted and moved around and shifted. And finally, the big battle, which is happening right now, it's been going on for a couple of weeks now.
Right, Mariupol.
No, Mariupol is, that's old news. That's been old news for at least 3 weeks. See, because there comes a moment when an army is attacking a city or a position or whatever, when it's over, okay? It's just a matter, it just becomes, it's like when, in the movie, right, they reveal the murderer, the movie's over. But then there's going to be a coda, and there's going to be like some extra stuff, and the hero and the heroine are going to kiss and make up, and the little tying up the loose ends kind of thing, right? But
Right.
the movie's over. It's just the denouement, right? See, the movie, the Mariupol, and here's another key issue.
Well, on the mainstream press, on the front page, the last days, in their paradigm, in their view, it's Mariupol. But if we look at the map, it is over. I mean, I think
it's been over for 3 weeks. Okay.
Right.
See, you got to understand. There's another thing too that people don't understand about this war. See, the Russians didn't go in there thinking we're going to conquer territory. The Russians had a very clear objective: demilitarize and denazify. Right? Now you think that's lip service. No, that's what they were doing. And when they say demilitarize, what does that mean? It means neutralizing the military ability of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? Well, it means that you're going to either destroy the Ukrainian armed force or get them to surrender. Okay, that's the goal of when you say demilitarize. Okay, yeah. And so they're not interested in capturing cities. They're not interested in capturing territory.
Right.
They're interested in demilitarizing, which is destroying the military capability of Ukraine. And of course, this is a tragedy because the military capability of Ukraine is 250,000 men. And these are young men, the flower of the nation. And their destruction, their defeat is going to cause inconsolable misery to all of these families.
Yep.
And even the survivors are going to carry scars with them that will haunt them the rest of their lives. And they will always feel this terrible weight of being, part of an army that lost, a losing army. It's a brutal psychological defeat for any man. And forget about the death, okay? And death of young boys who are like 20 years old, who've got their entire lives ahead of them, okay? And the thing is, see, the Russians, they came in soft. And people don't want to admit it, and they want to say all kinds of stuff, but it's true. The Russians came in soft. They didn't come in heavy.
Compare it to Iraq. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, look at how the Americans fight a war. The Americans, roll up with their planes. They destroy everything. Every piece of civilian infrastructure.
Right.
They turned the whole city into rubble. Tens of thousands of people die. Hundreds, if not millions of people displaced. And then they roll in with their tanks and they act like conquering heroes, like, oh, look, we conquered this country. No, it's a mopping up operation after you destroyed it.
Yep.
See, the Russians had no intention of doing that. On the very first morning of the invasion, of the Russian invasion, I'm walking downtown Kiev. There's no explosions going on. There's nothing getting blown up. Okay, I was there. Don't tell me otherwise. Okay, there was no battle for Kiev. That's bullshit. Okay, because the Russians, they were tiptoeing into the country, and they were pushing for negotiations because they wanted a negotiated settlement. And what finally ended any possibility of a negotiated settlement was the Turkish meetings with the Zelensky regime in Russia. They met in Turkey. The Turks trying to be the mediators. Did I blank out?
No, you're still here.
Okay. They met up in Turkey and they tried to negotiate, and the Ukrainians finally said, okay, well, maybe we won't join NATO, right? And the Russians figure, well, we're making some progress, right? And then 2 weeks later, or not even a week later, the Ukrainians said they walked back everything that they'd agreed to. And all of a sudden the Russians are like, why are we negotiating with these guys? These guys are never going to negotiate. So we're just going to destroy everything. And that's what they're doing. They are destroying everything in the military. Okay, you got to keep that in mind. And the reason the city of Mariupol was destroyed is because, and this is the truth, the Azov battalion, which was headquartered in Mariupol, which hated ethnic Russians, because it's the whole battalion, or brigade really, was a bunch of neo-Nazis who hated Russians as an ethnic group. And Mariupol is, of course, ethnically Russian, and they speak Russian. They were stationed there, and they used the population, civilian population, as human shields. They put their heavy weaponry between the apartment towers and complexes. They used hospitals as staging grounds. They used people.
Yeah, that's what we've been hearing, and not just in Mariupol, by the way.
Truth.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can tell you about Mariupol from personal experience. I know a young woman from Mariupol. I met her last year, and she has family, her parents and aunts and uncles and whatnot, in Mariupol. Okay, she actually grew up in Mariupol, but left for university and so forth. Anyway, the point is that, she was telling me that her parents were reporting that Azov battalion was shooting at civilians and intimidating them into not getting out of the basement where they were taking shelter. That's somebody I know personally, okay? I know her first name, last name, and I know that she's not lying to me, okay? And that's the truth. And her story is being repeated in countless other accounts. And people are saying, oh, that's Russian propaganda. I have no doubt that the Russian propaganda organs are using these stories, but it doesn't make them false. See? I mean, Joseph Goebbels could say that the sky is blue. Yeah, well, he's a propagandist, but does that mean the sky is green? That he's lying? Come on.
Right.
I mean, just because a propaganda outlet is using something that's factually true does not mean that becomes a lie somehow.
Yeah, I mean,
Excuse me, I got something on my.
Don't worry. They talk about propaganda, but I mean, you just mentioned how Zelensky banned opposition. He basically consolidated the media into one, state media thing. And I'm sure you've been seeing what's going on in Europe. They've banned everything that has a hint of Russian.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Racist. Yeah. It's racist, by the way. It's completely racist. It goes against every value of the Western democracies, because the Western democracies have stated unequivocally that there's no such thing as collective guilt. See, you are from whatever race, whatever religion, whatever creed, and you are responsible as an individual, not you as a member of your people or religion or creed or what have you. Right. But here we are applying collective guilt over the political decisions of people in the Kremlin. You agree with them or not, that's irrelevant. The point is that, these Russian citizens, they didn't make these decisions. Like this tennis player, Medvedev.
Right. They've banned Russian players now from Wimbledon. And yeah.
Yeah. Look, I know for a fact that he did not decide to go to war with Ukraine. I know it for a fact. And I know for a fact that he has never shot at a Ukrainian. Okay. My psychic powers are that awesome. And also because, of course, he's a goddamn tennis player, for crying out loud. He had no, involvement in the political decision or the military actions. And yet he's paying the price just because he happens to be Russian. What the hell is going on? When I heard that some Italian university was proposing to ban Dostoevsky because he's Russian, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, man? I mean, come on. But it's hysteria, and it's from my point of view, it's another example of the end of empire.
Yeah.
Excuse me, just a minute. I'm going to get something in.
Sure. I'm just gonna remind the viewers how many people we got watching now. I think about 4,300 people. Make sure you guys have hit the like button.
Cheers.
Again, we're discussing touchy political subjects that the algorithm doesn't like, so it really helps to hit the like button or just comment, interact with the video in some way. And like I said, we've got Gonzalo Lira with us. He's residing in Ukraine, in Kharkiv, and he went missing for basically a week now, right? So April 15th. And
last week, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a week now. And he got picked up by the Ukrainian Security Services, the SBU. He can't talk about it because he's been forced to sign something until the investigation is...
Yeah, because the law in Ukraine is very clear that during an active investigation, you cannot discuss the proceedings of it until it's concluded and a sentence has been handed down. And since I'm in Ukraine, I'm going to abide by Ukrainian law and by the Ukrainian legitimate authority that has told me this. So that's where I am.
Gonzalo, I want to ask you something. Your accounts, your laptop, your phone, your YouTube channel, do you have access to these?
No.
Why don't you have access anymore? Were they taken from you?
Yeah. But beyond that, and the passwords were all changed.
So you were forced to give the passwords?
No, they figured out how to break into my phone.
Okay.
I don't even. I thought that you were. I had an iPhone, and I thought the whole point of iPhone was that it was unbreakable.
Well, can I ask what model you have? I'm just curious.
What?
Can I ask what model it is? I'm just curious if it's one of the later things or XR. Okay. Well, I'm sure they've given them Pegasus or some other tools from the Americans.
I'm sure that more sophisticated law enforcement, intelligence services have all kinds of equipment, and they don't have to bother with the user. And for a fact that they'd broken it in because I was able to examine it briefly. Well, I don't want to get into it.
Okay. Okay, but just to be clear, everything that's been posted from those accounts, that's not you, starting from April 15th.
Yeah, and none of the, if I actually haven't examined them carefully, okay? I looked at them, I glanced at them, and they seem not to have anything extra, okay? I don't know if anything has been deleted, okay? Like on my Telegram channel, I posted thousands of stuff on my Telegram channel. So I have no idea if anything got deleted. I wouldn't be able to keep track of it. And nothing seems to have appeared, but if anything does, just know that I haven't posted until further notice. At this time, I only have one online outlet, which is my Twitter account. It's Gonzalo Lira 1968, all one word. And Richard, I'd appreciate it if you posted in the description or something so that people know where to reach me at this time.
Right, I'm pulling it up on the screen right now. So this is the new account, right? As you said, at Gonzalo Lira 1968. This is the new Twitter. So
there's actually a couple of guys who were faking being me. One was actually pretty accurate. He actually sounded kind of like me.
Really?
But he had lousy spelling. Yeah, I'm kind of like a Nazi about the spelling.
Right.
So yeah, that's how people were like, yeah, it sounds like him, but the spelling, man. And yeah, there was like safe and save that you had mixed up and some other stuff. And yeah.
Can I ask you something? There are a bunch of people. I'm assuming these are Azov Battalion who claim that they had you. I'm sure you've seen these tweets by now, but look at this. They were posting on Twitter saying if anyone knows where Gonzalo Lira is.
I don't want to see that. Can you turn it off, please?
You can't get into that. The thing is,
I don't really want to talk about people who are like, hoping for my death, and laughing about it. I think that's wonderful. I mean, how would you feel about it?
It's disgusting. Yeah, it's really disgusting because you had again, I'm sure you've seen the other things. They were basically saying that they have you, and I think Scott Ritter, who is a former Marine in UN, he was basically, he said, I'm not sure if this is accurate, but he basically assumed that.
Well, you know, whatever anybody says, sometimes they make mistakes, and sometimes they jump the gun when they should be a little bit more cautious from of repeating what they might have heard, or of phrasing things. They should be a little bit more careful, and that's all I have to say about that particular situation.
Okay, yeah.
But look, in this kind of thing, a lot of people, when they get on the bandwagon, try to take advantage for their own, spurious little reasons. I could care less. It didn't affect me one way or the other. Okay, now some of it does. I think it's kind of like, some of the people, dude, they're. I have to insist on something. There were tens of thousands of people who sent such wonderful and kind wishes. I could never repay them. Okay, and I felt truly moved. It was truly something that reviewing it and spending the day seeing it, message after message wishing me the best, and so many people praying for my well-being and just so worried, and it's deeply humbling. It truly is, and it affected me profoundly, but on the flip side, there's always going to be that 5-10% of assholes who say all kinds of nasty stuff. And you got to take the bitter with the better. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but you don't go on it. That's my thing. And like a lot of online influencers, I mean, you're an old hand at this, so you know what I'm talking about. Everybody gets shit thrown at them. And the trick is that you mentally have to just disconnect and realize that these people who are throwing all this shit and saying such evil things, it's not you or me, it's themselves. They have a hatred within themselves, in their hearts, hatreds that are, born of years of resentment, and whether justified or not. Sometimes these poor individuals have suffered grotesque injustices, and sometimes they're just born bad, to put it quite bluntly. But regardless of the core reason of the whatever lit that fuse, right? The hatred that they spew at you is really a hatred that they feel for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not your problem. When you see that kind of hatred, I mean, there was actually some live streamer that did a whole live stream celebrating my possible death.
It's disgusting. It's really disgusting. And I was talking about this yesterday.
It's sad. What it is that, Richard, that is just the expression of the self-hatred of such individuals. Okay. I mean, like, you and I are talking, right? If I hear that some guy that I really just don't like, he suffers some horrible fate, I'm not going to celebrate it.
Exactly.
I'll feel sorry about it, because the death of a human being is a tragic thing. And I know that you would feel the exact same way and act the same way. And frankly, if I were to hear that somebody that I really hated, like my worst enemy in the world, something tragic happened to them, I'd be like, oh, this awful thing happened to the guy. I don't care for the guy, but this happened to him, poor bastard.
Yep.
And move on. And that would be that. It wouldn't even, I mean, it would never dominate my attention beyond, the 2 minutes it takes to say what I just said, right?
Yeah.
But to spend, a couple of hours, that is just a deep-seated hatred for yourself.
It's really telling. It's really telling. I was when I was speaking about you yesterday, I was just raising the example about how disgusting all this is. At the beginning of the Ukraine war, you had a couple of journalists, a cameraman who used to work with Fox, CNN, with everybody. He got killed, unfortunately. You had another journalist, I think, from the New York Times. And again, we hate mainstream media. We don't like CNN. We don't like all of the
you
propaganda.
You hate mainstream media? They're my best friends. We hang out all the time. We have picnics. What the hell's the matter with you, Richard?
my point is that we hate the propaganda, but we're still upset at seeing people being killed, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and gloat about something like that. And I think it's so funny that you have people calling themselves liberals and the people who support so-called democracy, and they see another journalist being kidnapped or killed or worse, and they celebrate that's so telling of what authoritarians they are, and the deep-seated hatred that you just talked about. It's really disgusting. And I'm sorry, I didn't want to upset you by showing this. My question actually was if it was true, if it was really these people, because aside from the gloating, we were just worried that
any of those people.
Okay, that's the only thing. Okay, because people were worried that is it really the SBU? Is it someone else? But I know you can't talk about it. I just wanted to ask, so because people have a lot of questions. There's literally thousands of people spamming the comments right now. The most important thing is you're okay. I think everybody is really happy to see you again. You had us worried for a moment, and figuratively.
I was worried too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some people that you posted about on Twitter. You said that, like, you listed a few names, and you said that they're also. If I can just pull this up, this is from your old Twitter account. Could you tell us a bit more about these people and who they are and?
Well, see, what I wanted to highlight was that these are people that the Zelensky regime has dealt with. If you could put the list on again, because I offhand I can't recall the names. Look at them. Now, the first one was the name of the mayor of a small town in Lugansk province. Kremina, I believe, is a town of about 18,000 people. Not a particularly large town in Ukraine, if quite frankly, a rather small one. And Vladimir Struk was assassinated. He was kidnapped on the 1st of March, and he was found 2-3 days later, I believe, shot through the heart and dumped in the middle of his own town.
Oh man!
Because he was considered pro-Russian. Okay. Now, Denis Kiryev was a member of parliament in the Ukrainian parliament, of course, and he was also one of the members of the negotiation team. Now, remember, when you send a negotiation team, who do you send? You send the people that you trust the most, the people that are the most capable,
right?
Because you want to get a good deal, right? In whatever negotiation you get involved in, right? So Denis Kiryev was somebody who was supposed to be trustworthy. And yet, after the second meeting of the negotiation, he was arrested. And in the process of his being arrested, he was killed. It's unclear if this was a deliberate assassination or if his security people resisted, or the whole situation is unclear. But what is clear is that Denis Kiryev, who appeared in pictures of the first couple of negotiation meetings with the Russians that took place in Belarus, well, Mr. Kiryev was killed, and in very bizarre circumstances. Now, Mikhail and Alexander Kononovich are. The first two gentlemen are dead. Mikhail and Alexander Kononovich they were active in the communist youth, young kids in their early 20s, and they were kidnapped, and nobody knows where they are right now. And their crime is that they were communist and insufficiently pro-Ukrainian, I suppose. Nestor Shufrik, now that's a scary story. He was another member of parliament, also considered pro-Russian, because he said that he wanted, and these were his words, he said that we should bring the boys back home, meaning, bringing all the soldiers back home, which is a perfectly somewhat sentimental statement. It's nothing that, you get upset about, you at most you dismiss it, as being impractical and a little bit woolly. Right. But other than that, nothing to it. Well, he was kidnapped by thugs, and these thugs, they actually took selfies of themselves holding a knife to his throat. I'm not kidding. Look it up.
Oh, man.
Google his name, Nestor Shufrik. And he was kidnapped by these thugs, and then he was trussed up like a turkey and blindfolded and left on the street for the SBU to collect as if he were a package. And then there's another video of Nestor Shufrik being verbally abused and manhandled by an SBU officer. What happened to him after that, nobody knows. And that was a sitting member of parliament. Okay, think of it. Think of if somebody did that to your favorite member of Congress or your favorite MP, or this is serious stuff here.
Yep.
The stories are similar. Yan Taksiur, Dmitry Jangirov, they were journalists. Elena Berezhnaya is a human rights advocate. and they all have similar stories. Look them up. Don't take my word for anything, okay? Because I'm sort of stupid and I make a lot of mistakes. And so it's, there's Google. So just copy paste and go to Google and you'll see all this stuff that I'm telling you, okay? I mean, you don't have to believe me, okay? That's the point I want to say. You should never believe anybody. You should use the old Reagan adage: trust but verify. Okay. If I say something, if I say something and you say, "Wow, that sounds goddamn outrageous," I'm going to look it up. Take the 2 minutes, because what'll happen is this: see, either I'm right and I'm telling you the truth, or I'm lying to you and telling you some bullshit, right? And so what'll happen? Either way, you benefit. Because if what I'm saying is true, then you're going to get a clearer picture of reality by the confirmation that you pursue by way of Google. And if I'm bullshitting and lying, you'll be able to say, no, Gonzalo Lira is just bullshitting and lying. It's not this way, it's that way. Okay. Either way, you benefit. Okay. And that's all you have to do. It takes 5 minutes. Okay. And don't take my word for anything. And the stuff I was telling you guys about Victoria Nuland and Ihor Kolomoisky and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Where Ihor Kolomoisky is this godfather figure who controls Zelensky and Hunter Biden. And of course, Hunter Biden, he goes to Ukraine all the time, right? You think that they didn't give him coke and hookers and they didn't film the shit out of those coke and hooker sessions? Yeah. Goddamn right, they did, right? And they have got that the Russian word kompromat,
exactly,
compromising information. And you don't think that they have that on Hunter Biden? And by the way, since Kolomoisky and Victoria Nuland are buddies, don't you think that Kolomoisky would have passed some of that kompromat to Victoria Nuland so that she can get her way insofar as the Biden administration is concerned?
Certainly possible. I mean, it's not beyond the pale.
Yeah. But let me rephrase that. It's the reasonable inference, okay? I mean, look, you, Richard, and me, right? You and I are working together, and I've got this John Smith fellow who's causing me all kinds of problems. And you, Richard, you tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Gonzalo, guess what? I got pictures of John Smith's kid snorting coke and doing hookers or doing underage children or God knows what. I'll give you this, and I'll scratch your back and you scratch mine, and you'll be able to screw over this guy." I'll be like, "Sure, no problem, of course." I mean, with nefarious people like this, people of low morals or no morals, quite frankly, of course they're going to do awful things like this.
In Washington D.C. and Whitehall, it's really not that far fetched. The thing is,
come on, to go over to something that intimately, the whole Julian Assange issue. Julian Assange, he's being tried in the United States, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's being tried in the United States on espionage charges. And yet Julian Assange, as far as I know, is an Australian citizen.
He is.
Who has never lived in the United States. And I don't think he's stepped in the United States in decades, probably.
He went there once on holiday. He never worked or lived there.
Yeah. And number two, I'm pretty sure that he didn't steal this information. So he wasn't a spy. He got this information like a legitimate journalist and published it. But he didn't spy to get it, and he's not an American citizen, so he's not committing treason. And the crime was committed by other people, if you want to consider it a crime. And so why is he being tried on the Espionage Act? Riddle me this, Batman. I mean, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah,
right? It's just low people using brute force power. Now, I would suggest this is going to be controversial, but I would suggest to your listeners to read the 2007 speech that Putin gave at Munich, okay? Whatever you think of Putin, that he's like, Hitler version 2.0 or a saint, it doesn't matter. That speech is actually one of the most important speeches in the last 30, 40 years, because it lays out the fact that the future is multipolar, and this kind of unipolar brute force approach cannot endure. And whatever you think of Putin, whatever you think of this war that he started, but it's more nuanced than that because everything is more nuanced, right? But whatever you might think of him, the speech is really on the nose insofar as discussing the problems where when you have a unipolar world, rather, you have the propensity for hyperviolence. and a complete lack of nuance and understanding, and a complete inability to compromise and negotiate and reach solutions that benefit all. It in a unipolar world, everything becomes black, white,
Yeah.
us, them. And we good guys, them bad guys, destroy guys. It's crazy crap like that.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened, and I think it's a disaster, and it's a tragedy, because in the West we are betraying everything that we believed in order to enforce this unipolar world that is so incredibly unjust and wrong. And Julian Assange is a part of it, because what's going on is that some people in Washington got pissed off that he made fools of them, and so because of it they want to punish him, even though in a legal sense and a moral sense he never did anything against the United States. He just published information. But it's all part of the same bullshit.
It is.
That's and emphasize. See, you think that, Ukraine doesn't connect with Julian Assange. Julian Assange never set foot in Ukraine, as far as I know. But it does. It does connect. It's this bullshit, these lies, the betrayal of everything valuable of Western civilization.
Yeah.
Because you see, Western civilization is based on specific principles of human behavior, human rights, human dignity. But most important of all is a moral sense of that which is good and that which is evil, what is wrong. And what's happened is that our current leadership, they've literally gone beyond good and evil. For them, it's just expediency and maintaining and accruing more power, irrespective of the human cost to all the people that will be, run over in this relentless pursuit of power.
Well,
sorry for ranting.
That's how you get people. That's how you get people like Victoria Nuland, because she's a neoconservative, right? And I think they take this good evil thing to the it's balls to the wall, because they think that we meaning the West, we're inherently good and everything we do is good, no matter how corrupt it is, no matter how contradictory it is to
definition.
To the stated beliefs of human rights and democracy. And then again, when you have this unipolar world, it's just emboldening, and it's like let's crush, let's erase, let's decimate anybody who challenges us. And I totally see why you say the Assange case relates to Ukraine. It's really all part of the same framework. It truly is, and it's kind of weird watching journalists in this climate. They don't challenge power centers anymore. They don't challenge their own governments or corporations or intelligence agencies. They just cover for them, and instead they want to go after random private citizens or other journalists. It's really weird. And I don't need to tell you, publications like the Daily Beast, the New York Times, they're all in it together. It's quite pathetic at this point. We don't have a fourth pillar anymore. And maybe some of your audience members don't know, so I'll just tell the story because it's funny. I got a hit piece done on me by the Daily Beast. Yeah.
And they like smeared me. And the thing is, they smeared me relentlessly, but they didn't pin anything on me. They didn't say, he murdered his puppy or ran over an old lady or something. No, it was just random smearing, and it was so long. It was 10,000 words, right? And they never pinned me with anything that had actually that you could say, yes, this was morally reprehensible. No, it was just innuendo and bullshit and kinds of garbage.
Yes,
right?
It's ridiculous. It really funny. Stems from this hatred. Somebody dedicated all that time to write this.
Exactly. The sickness of a soul, because you read that. Because I'm a professional writer. I got my start in Hollywood, or writing scripts, and then I got into writing novels for a while, and just did other stuff. But the point is that, you get into writing enough, and you start to realize that people's emotion, their soul, whether they want to or not, it starts to flower in what they're writing. And when you're in a better mood and when you're happy in general, it shows in the work that you do. Okay. And what I'm basically saying in a complicated way is that your written work is a reflection of yourself, your mood, of your soul. Okay. I mean, there are some people, I myself, unfortunately, do not have the gift of belief. I personally believe that this is the only life that we have. But yet I do believe that there is like a soul, not in the immortal sense, but rather just like a spirit, a vibe that is unique to each person, because each person has just a unique frequency. And I know it sounds all kinds of hippie bullshit, but you see what I'm saying. But the point, the important point, and what I want to make is that, see, um, that vibe of who you are comes through your writing. It's reflected in it. And when it's dissonant, when it's sick, when what's inside your soul is just putrid, it is reflected in the writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading this Daily Beast hit piece on me. And since I'm a professional writer, I can easily read something completely objectively and look at it just as a piece of writing as opposed to something about me. And I thought to myself, this guy is not scoring any points on this target, but he's just revealing himself in this Joycean kind of epiphany way, paragraph after paragraph, just revealing the hatred for himself, the hatred for life in general. And it was just so sad. I mean, it was kind of funny because it was all this effort to, get me, but he failed, right? But more fundamentally, it was just a sadness. And I think that, I personally think that so much of our society, insofar as the debt slavery of so many students, the rigid educational system that forces intelligent people to become compliant in order to succeed, rather than encourage them to explore and potentially fail so that they will grow as people. I mean, our educational system and the way it's set up, the for-profit educational system, and do keep in mind, I'm a conservative. I am a political conservative. I'm not center right. No, I'm right wing. Yeah, fuck yeah. But I think that the educational system, which is usurious, has severely damaged our society because it forces people to go into enormous debt to pursue professions that they might not be suited for.
Yeah.
But the profit motive is superseded the educational motive to such an extent and to such a degree that the only people who are hurting are the products of this educational system. They end up with a mountain of debt, hatred in their hearts because they cannot pursue the things that they truly want because of this debt. They can't start a family. They can't buy a home of their own. They have to pursue occupations that they hate in order to pay their monthly nut of their educational loans. And on top of that, if they just pay the monthly minimum, the loan actually grows because of the interest, And so it's just horrible.
It's a vicious cycle.
It says here on my screen that my internet.
I can hear you fine.
And I think that it's usurious and it's despicable, and worst of all, it's killing the spirit of so many young people that it's no longer. When I graduated from college, was worth of debt was at that time, and this was 1995. 18 grand. And today, you graduate with $200,000 worth of debt, no problem. And it's a fucked up system. It has to be, and the only people who benefit are administrators and bankers.
Yep.
And I can tell you, by the way, I'm one of the evil capitalist pigs who has invested in student loans, because student loans are bundled and sold as bonds. They're incredibly, what? The government is backing those bonds because all those student loans are guaranteed. You can't discharge them, and they're 100% safe. And of course, they're giving you. So it's the perfect deal. So capitalist pigs like me make money off this shit. Okay, you got to understand that the system is incredibly pernicious, and it gives these terrible incentives, and the only people who benefit are the people with money or the administrators, and that's the tragedy of it.
That's true.
I don't know if I cut out, by the way.
You did cut out slightly, but I understood the essence of what you're saying. It's quite predatory, if we can say, that you model something like education.
Dude, it's fucking vampire squid to your face, dude.
Yeah.
It's like alien face hugger, okay? Because also the other problem is, dude, see, everybody wants to go up in society. They want to earn a decent living and buy the material things that they've been convinced that will make them happy. Of course, when you actually get all that material shit, you realize it doesn't make you happy, but that's another story. The thing is that all these kids graduating from my school, they've been socialized into believing this bullshit. And so they want to get that accreditation because they realize they're not stupid. They realize that the degree isn't going to teach them shit. It's just an accreditation. And so they all want this accreditation, and they'll willingly pay whatever is necessary, sign whatever paper is put in front of them without thinking the long-term consequences of their decisions. And of course, their parents, because their parents are in the same boat, and of course, the parents want the best for the kids, and they also have been socialized. The parents have been socialized into thinking that a university education is the way to go. They go along with this bullshit. And,
well, I mean,
here you have it. And the thing is, you can't convince the parents or the kids that this is a terrible decision that they're making. You can't convince them.
The thing is, in most countries, especially if education is free, it is the right choice. But when you have a system where, again, this the squid on your face, they're just trying to suck money out of you. And also the poverty draft, right? Basically, come to the military, get your limb blown off for a Purple Heart, and we'll pay for your college education. It's not really a good system, No,
it's a horrible system. Okay. But, look, the only thing that's going to change this system is a collapse of the system, because there are too many people who have too much skin in the game to let it fall apart. Okay, like take the administrators at the universities, right? They're making so much damn money with all their stupid programs and their stupid administrative bullshit going on. But they make so much goddamn money that, of course, they're not going to turn it off. Of course, they're not going to dial it back. They're going to keep on, and they're going to keep on doubling down. And so you're going to have this university system where right now it's more administrators than professors or teachers. And the professors and teachers get paid shitloads less than the administrators, and the administrators, oh man, they have nice offices, they have nice salaries, everything is hunky-dory for them.
So the people who are actually doing the work, the teachers, they're getting screwed as well.
Yeah, exactly. And like, for instance, I went to an Ivy League school, and I was already seeing it back in the early 90s, and I've heard it's become much worse, where you have the very few tenured professors, but you have a lot of these visiting scholars and visiting professors and shit who do the grunt work of teaching, right? Mm-hmm. And what happens with the system? They pay these visiting or associate professors. They have different names for them in different places, but basically they're a professor who comes in for a couple of years, teaches a few courses, maybe 2 years or 4 years, and then gets the boot out. And they get paid very little. And so the department's budget is able to be shrunk because they're not funding tenured professors who are better academics, right? They're funding these, these low-level professors who hopscotch from university to university throughout their career, spending 2 to 4 years in each university, but never getting on the tenure track, and therefore never having any kind of job security. And so these academic journeymen, for lack of a better term, right, they do the grunt work for shit pay. And that's how they can shrink the budget of each department. And what happens when they shrink the budget of that department, that extra money, that extra layer of cash that's saved, it goes to administration. It goes to bullshit, it goes to all kinds of programs. Like diversity programs and shit like that.
The thing is, right now,
how much more fucking diversity do you fucking need, man?
Well, Biden sent $800 million for the Ukrainians yesterday morning, and I think that speaks volumes about the priorities. Where it's basically like, screw Americans, and the EU saying the same thing about Europeans. Like, screw our own people. We're going to give this money to a bunch of Nazis so they can have javelins. It really speaks volumes about the priorities. Like, let's not invest in infrastructure or healthcare.
Part about that. The worst part of that in terms of weapons and armaments and stuff like that. See, all that shit, the second it crosses the Polish-Ukrainian border and gets to Ukraine, the Russians are going to know exactly where it is, and they're going to wait until it gets to a great spot with a lot of other weapons, and then they're going to blow it sky high. They're going to just, send a Caliber missile or 2 or 3 or 5 or however many it takes, and just blow that thing sky high, no problem. And because they do that all the fucking time. I was reading today about some strike that they hit in Lviv like 2-3 days ago or something, and I saw the video, man. It was awesome, man. It's just really cool.
I don't think I've seen it, but
oh well, they blew up some weapons depot. The Ukrainian government said it was like I don't know, basketball courts or some shit like that. And no, it was like all kinds of weapons and crap, imported weapons from the West. See, the Russians own the skies of Ukraine, and there's something else too. You got to understand. The Russians have incredible human intelligence on the ground. They have a lot of people in Ukraine who are, it's not correct to call them loyal to Russia, but they are extremely sympathetic to the Russian side. Many of them are ethnic Russians. Some of them are not even ethnic Russians. Some of them are ethnic Ukrainians. And they disagree with their current regime because their current regime is fucking awful, right? And so anyway, they get a lot of human intelligence, okay? And a lot of people think that human intelligence comes, a military person and getting, hookers and cocaine and taking pictures. No, it's not like that at all. It's not blackmail. Okay, that's just the Hollywood version. Okay, the kind of bullshit that I used to peddle back in the day. No, the reality is it's basically discontented people who think that a particular cause that they happen to be fighting for is wrong cause, and they don't want to be fighting for it, but they've got bills to pay and the mouths to feed and all the rest of it. And so they wind up giving up the ghost. And so anyway, the point, the Russians have great human intelligence. And so whatever is going on in Russia and Ukraine, rather, they know exactly what's going on. And so any thought that any weapons that get into Ukraine will actually make it to the front, it's just absurd. It's just not going to happen, man. And anyway, the war is going to be over before that.
I was just going to ask you, perhaps as a final question, how do you see the war developing? Because we've seen, Mariupol is basically done. There's just the metallurgical plant that's left. But again, there are other things. Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen? Again, it's speculation, but nevertheless.
Sure. I think that what's going to happen next is the Mariupol ended, like I said, 3 weeks ago. Okay, it's all over about the shouting. Okay, it's just when a military confrontation, there's no longer any doubt about the outcome. It really becomes a police action. Okay, where you have one force which is policing the area and trying to restore order by eliminating the threat of violence, the threat against that order. Okay, Mariupol ended about 2-3 weeks ago. It ended. Okay, and now this is just the cleaning up, and the cleaning up is going to last some more. Okay, because those guys who are down in the Azovstal, they're determined, and also there's something else going on. Somebody is down there, somebody important, somebody really important. I have my bets. I think it's a general called Roger Cloutier, an American general, but nobody knows what's going on down there. Okay, and yeah, you're going to say that this is tinfoil hat time. Maybe it is. This is speculative, what I'm saying, right? But the Ukrainian government sent 7 helicopters, and a bunch of them got shot down. There are different conflicting numbers as to how many were shot down. They also sent a ship to try to rescue people. Now, that kind of effort to remove just a handful of people, well, that handful of people, either they themselves are intrinsically important, or they have information that is extraordinarily important, or sensitive, or delicate, or embarrassing. Take your pick. And so I want to know what's down there. Okay, I mean, out of idle curiosity, quite frankly, but I'm just, something's down there. Okay, and I think that part of the reason that I heard how Putin and Defense Minister Shoigu gave this formal public debriefing where they decided, yes, they're not going to send Russian soldiers in to assault. They're just going to be patient and wait. And that was just for public consumption in Russia. But I think that they are doing that also because they want to see who's down there. I think they know who's down there, and they want to bring that person out. And that person is going to be a big chip in the game, okay? Because there's something going down there. I mean, I know it, how could I put it? You know when you get you know when you get a dog that gets a whiff of a rabbit, and he's like, oh, there's something there. Yeah, I'm like the exact same way. There's something there, man. I'm telling you, there's something there. So anyway, to go back to your serious question, so and very good question. Look, the way things are evolving is around Kramatorsk, around the Donbass area, around where the contact line is. See, all that area is, there are trenches, there's bunkers, there's all kinds of installations that the Ukrainians have built over the past 8 years, defensive fortifications, okay? Now, that area and those soldiers are being encircled by the Russian army. They're being encircled and they're being held down rather, by the DPR and LPR forces, and they are being encircled by the Russian forces. Now, it's typically called a cauldron because it's a typical classic Russian military strategy that they've been using since the Napoleonic Wars. Okay, it's like 200 years old by this point. And you know, don't fix it if it ain't broke. And the system is very simple. You attack and surround your enemy, right?
Like a pincer.
Yeah, it's a double pincer. And envelopment, call it what you will. But once you have it surrounded, you just turn up the heat and slowly grind it down, okay? And it's the American mode of war is these big breakout moves, but the Russians prefer nice, slow, predictable grinding down. So that's going to get ground down. And that's a tragedy because there are at least 60,000 men there. Frontline fighters, the best of the best that the Ukrainians have. And to see those poor men be annihilated, it's a tragedy. I'm not kidding. I'm not being ironic or sarcastic by any stretch of the imagination. I'm being dead honest here. It is a fucking tragedy. Those men, fine men, brave men, they're going to be annihilated because the political leadership of Zelensky being pushed by the neo-Nazis and by the Newland people and the Anthony Blinken people and the State Department in Washington, and also Boris Johnson, who recently came out that you cannot negotiate with the Russians and all this bullshit. Those poor soldiers are going to be annihilated for nothing. I mean, this is the tragedy. It's going to be for nothing, you know? I mean, look, when you have a battle, a fierce battle, where there's a possibility of one side decisively winning or the other side decisively winning, and there's a great loss of life, of course it's a tragedy, but at least it was for a good reason, okay? But here it's going to be for no reason because these poor men, brave as they are, and they are brave indisputably, they can't win because they don't have the ability to resupply, they do not have any fuel, they do not have the possibility of being relieved or reinforced. It's over.
Yep.
And these poor men are going to be, if they're lucky, they get smart and lay down their weapons, which is a bitter, bitter pill, no question. But it's infinitely better than death for no reason. That's the thing, you know? So anyway, you got this encirclement that's going on in eastern Ukraine, the famous cauldron. Actually, it's now a double cauldron at this point, but it doesn't matter. I mean, for purposes of just figuring out where this is going to go. The next step would be very obviously to grind that cauldron down. It could be 4 to 6 weeks. It could be quicker, because what happens a lot of times in these types of situations, when you look at military history, what happens a lot of times, you can have a very, very fierce defender, but all of a sudden they hit some tipping point, and nobody knows when the tipping point is until it hits. And just all of a sudden the morale of the entire army collapses, and the whole thing is like a sandcastle that just collapses, you know, all at once. And it's over. And everybody knows it. It's like and you read accounts of it in World War II, in the different armies, that they were fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and suddenly one side or the other realized we can't win, and it just collapses. You know, it's that sudden and abrupt. Okay. And when that happens, everybody's sort of like, oh, it's done. Oh? Well, it could be that this lasts, like I said before, 4 to 6 weeks, or it could be that all of a sudden this sudden morale collapse happens earlier and it's done. Let's hope for that, because it will reduce the loss of life, the needless loss of life. But assuming it doesn't, you're talking 4 to 6 weeks of this encirclement. And then the Russians are going to turn their attention to Nikolaev. And that will be fairly fast. And what I would guess is that they'll turn their attention to that and they'll really hit it hard at first. I mean, this is assuming that any kind of organized resistance still remains in Nikolaev, right? It could be that
Right.
the people who are at Nikolaev, they see the catastrophe of the Donbass encirclement and realize, we're done, okay? And so there are a lot of factors, but the order would be the encirclement, then turn west to Nikolaev, then probably turn east again to Kharkov, where I am, and just take it. And then very clearly, once that's done, rather than go to Kiev, it would be a mad dash to the west, because you have to keep in mind that, see, in the middle of the country, there's no soldiers. It's empty. It's just cows and wheat fields, okay? Because everything is either around Kiev, around Kharkov, around Nikolaev, or in the Donbass, okay? So once the Russians have this thing in hand, it could be just a mad dash and they get to Lviv and they capture Lviv, okay? And I think that they're never going to invade Odessa. Odessa is a historically very important city for the Russians. And for various psychological and historical reasons, they don't want to touch it. And so I think that what they're going to do is just encircle it and wait. And so it could be that there's a lot of waiting around before the end of the war, but actually not that much fighting. The brunt of the fighting is happening right now, okay? And the fact that, you see, the Russian policy of not really showing, war zone footage, okay? Like they have Patrick Lancaster, who's a great guy, a bald guy, right? But I suspect that he's being very careful.
Sorry, you cut out for a second, Gonzalo.
See a lot. Okay, of that footage include that. Oh, okay, sorry about that.
You're back now.
Well, I can't control it, so I don't know why I'm being sorry. Okay. No, but what I was saying was that where did I end up? Where did I get cut off?
Just about 30 seconds ago, you were saying that I think with Patrick, you started explaining about him being carefully. Oh
yeah, Patrick Lancaster, who's a ballsy guy. I mean, that guy has got balls. He's a real journalist. Okay, I mean, he's somebody to pay attention to. And he if the world were straight, he. Am I still there? I went blank. Okay. So anyway, the point I wanted to make is that I think that the Ukrainians are carefully stage managing well, I know that they're carefully stage managing this war, and they're not letting any footage come out of the Donbass encirclement. So that means that things are really, really ugly over there, really ugly. And I just hope that this war ends quickly. Because the sooner it ends, the less life will be lost for no reason. Because we, like I said before, if I get into the ring with Conor McGregor, who are you going to bet on? Me, or Conor? I mean, come on, how it's going to end. Yeah. Maybe I'll put up a really brave fight and make it last a little bit more than 20 seconds or whatever. But I'm going to lose. And there isn't a hell of a lot to be done about it. And it has nothing to do with bravery or decency or anything. It's just the reality of the situation. And we have to we have to put on the big boy pants and look at reality in the face. And the fact that our leadership refuses to do so and instead convinces us that some sort of victory can be won, it is going to kill Ukrainians for no reason. That is what I want to avoid, because needless death, throwing away the lives of young people for a cause that cannot be won, that should never have been fought in the first place, it's just unconscionable as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, this is something that could have been resolved diplomatically. It still can be resolved diplomatically, but I think they just,
No,
they
not anymore.
Well, it depends how long they go on for. Because right now, I think for the Russians, it's a question of no more negotiations. They're just going to force an unconditional surrender, and in that case, that means at the end of the day, Ukraine is not going to be part of NATO, whether they like it or not. And the only people benefiting from this are arms dealers. That's really the gist of it. They're making bank. You saw their stocks. Their stocks are up very good. And they were even saying this before the war started.
You got to understand, Richard. See, you have to understand how this works. See, 1 year it's pharma, then the next year it's the weapons manufacturers, and then the year after that it's going to be which industry? You tell me.
Well, could be oil, could be I don't know, the banks. Let's give them another bailout. Pick and
corruption. The corruption. That's the thing I despise about the system. They're just so damn corrupt.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. That's the core issue. Gonzalo, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you probably want to rest after everything. I'm just gonna put up your Twitter, your new Twitter, I should say. Just give me one moment to pull the link up. Here we go. This is Gonzalo Lira 1968. That's the handle. You can see it right here, and I'll post the link in the chat right now so people can go ahead and follow.
I got 10,000 followers in a day. That's pretty cool.
No, not bad. I'm sure they'll increase again, and I hope you get your other accounts back, your YouTube and so on. Do you have any?
I hope so. Yeah.
Do you have any other places people can follow you, or it's just the Twitter?
At this time, that's the only place I'm at right now. I can't even get a Gmail account, so because I don't have a phone, so yeah, it's a bit of a mess, and there are no phone stores open right now, obviously, because there's a war going on. So, so no luck in that regard, So yeah.
Okay, well, we'll keep in touch. I'll message you, and this will stay up, of course. And again, thanks for coming on and for everything you do. And get some rest. There are lots of people wishing you well in the comments. I couldn't read them all; it would take forever. So you have to look at them afterwards. But yeah, lots of people wishing you well.
Thank you very much. And Richard, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. This is the first time we had interacted, and I'm sorry if I ranted too much.
No, it's fine. It's great. It's great. It was very insightful.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. And to chat, take it easy, chat, and I'll catch you guys next time.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye, mate. Have a good one.
Bye.